Okay. All right. And let's see. All right. So let's get into the credit here. All right. Again, I'm John Wilkinson here, Credit Solution Program. I am a credit expert witness in the field of credit, credit specialist as well. I've taught thousands of people about how credit works and how to fix their credit issues. All right, I'm the CEO of Credit Solution Programs, which is a nonprofit organization. All right, I'm FICO certified, and I was in the military and have a degree in information technology and familiar with mortgages as well. These are some of my mentors, real quick. So we comply with all the different regulations that are out there. So when it comes to your credit, right, everything has to be accurate, verifiable, and complete. All right. So that's according to the federal regulation called the Fair Credit Reporting Act. All right. So if your balance is incorrect, if your anything that's incorrect on your credit falls under that. The Fair Debit Collections Practice Act, this governs third-party collection companies. All right. So that's the people that buy the debt after the account went into collections. You got the Fair Credit Billing Act, which is governs your original creditors. And then if you were in the military, this governs that as well. And this is for real estate. You have a federal act that governs you for real estate as well. All right, so let's talk about the credit. How does this all work? How is the credit score calculated? So the credit score is nothing but a three-digit number used to predict the likelihood that you're going to pay back somebody. So everybody can read here. So just think of it, it's just a risk model. All right, so it's a three-digit numbers that depends on how risky of a borrower somebody is. All right. All right, so think of a credit score as a snapshot of your credit, the information that's on your credit at that particular time you're looking at um, that credit score. All right, so FICO, which is what you guys are using particularly now for the home loan, right? So that's used by majority of different lenders. So I think of this as Windows compared to Microsoft, right? I mean, Microsoft compared to Apple, right? So Microsoft owns the majority of the market, and Apple only owns about 10 to 20%. All right. So the FICO goes from 300 to 850. These other credit bureaus, had other credit scores out there. So, but what happened is the three got together and created what you call your Vantage score. So when you guys go to Credit Karma, this is what you see. This is called the Vantage score. It's just calculated differently, right? So Credit Sesame, Credit Karma, it's calculated differently. So they're not fake scores, they're real scores, but right, they are what most lenders are not going to use, right? So think of when you think of the FICO credit scores, right? It goes in different versions, just like Windows, Microsoft, right? You had Windows 7, you have Windows 8, now you're in Windows 10. It's the same thing with the credit score, the FICO, and the different. Now we're at Vantage 4.0, and on the FICO credit score, we're at FICO 10 now, right? But it's relevant for you guys to be at, since you're doing a home loan, they're using the old FICO credit scores, which is FICO 5, FICO 4, and FICO 2, right? So the only place you're really going to know what these particular credit scores are, besides getting your credit pulled by a mortgage broker or something, is go to myfico.com. You can sign up there, and that will give you all your different types of FICO credit scores that are out there. Okay, and also the FICO credit score is industry specific. So if you had a repo on your credit and you go to a car dealership versus going to a mortgage broker, the car dealership is probably going to have a lower credit score than the mortgage broker because it's industry specific as well. All right, so this is what I was talking about, industry specific. Again, as you can see on here, let me see if I can get the pen here. So as you can see on here, the FICO for the mortgage, right? You only have one, right? One column there. That's for the mortgage. Now with, you know, auto lending and other things, creditors can choose whatever scoring system they want to use. All right. So it's all voluntary. If they want to use an old FICO credit score, they can. If they want to use another newer model, they can. It's their decision. It's their money. They're putting it at risk. Okay, so FICO 8, things change between the different FICO credit scores, right? So now we're at FICO 8. Now some people were putting what they call authorized users on their credit, right? Well, this is when, let's say your mother, your brother, or somebody has a credit card in good standing, they can add you as what they call an authorized user, which will usually, hint, guys, this is very important, will report on your credit and give you that particular, like it's your account, give you the scoring like it's your account, right? Because you guys are getting home loans. So if you don't have any open credit cards, you need to have at least one, right? And we'll go over that in a second. All right, so the authorized user is a different way, but this isn't a FICO 8. You guys are not worried about this particular one because of the home loans. Now, if you're going for a car or something like that, now, you know, maybe you would be care about what affects the scores. All right, and FICO 9, these are the things that came out with FICO 9 as well. All right, so if you want to jot this down, or I can give a copy of this to them to send to you guys as well, if you would like. All right, so here's the breakdown, and I'm going to get into this in detail with you guys. All right, so let's skip through this real quick. All right, so let's break it down here. This is what you're really concerned about, guys. This has to do with the FICO credit score, the FICO, you know, of how it's calculated. So 35% of your credit score, right, is past delinquency. So this is just paying your bills on time. So it goes in 30-day increments. So if you're 30 days late, it's going to get reported on your credit. If you're 60 days late, 90 days late, and so forth. Now, if you pay on the 29th day, they cannot report on your credit as being late, even though the creditor might consider it late and charge you some overdraft fee or some fees or whatever, but according to your credit, they cannot report it. So if you're 30 days late, that's going to go into this 35%. If you have any defaulted accounts on your credit, it's going to go in these 35%. Okay, so that's the largest, paying your bills on time. Next, which is a huge one, 30% of your credit score, guys. Oh, we go back, sorry about that, is debt ratio. What do I mean by debt ratio? Well, by debt ratio, I mean the balance compared to your limit, right? So the majority of this 35% has to do with credit cards or revolving debt, right? So revolving debt is just that. You pay, you borrow, you pay, you borrow, it keeps on going forever, right? So if you have like $1,000 limit on a credit card and you have almost $1,000 balance, right? Your credit scores are going to take a big dip because now you're limiting, you know, showing that you're financially stressed, right? So if you pay that credit card down, let's say you pay that credit card completely off, you're going to see your credit score jump up big time, right? You know, in a lot of ways. So it looks at each individual account. Okay, are you at 30% utilization? You know, meaning that you're using 30% of your available limit, or you higher, and then it takes a total overall. So if you have 3 credit cards, one's, make it simple, 1,000, 1,000, and 1,000, you have a $3,000 limit, and it's going to compare that against the balances. All right, so 15% of your credit score here is the age of your credit file. This is why we tell people, do not close your credit card accounts. If you close a credit card account, you're not losing the history, you're just not gaining any more history. Okay, so you know, you want to gain as much history on your credit as possible. So when you open a new account, right, you're lowering your overall average of your age, and this counts in that 15%. So if I have a 5 accounts, make it super simple. 4 of them are 10 years old, and you have one that's brand new, right? So now we have 10, 10, 10, 10, so that's 40. And this one is, like, say, 1 year old, that's 41 divided by 5, right? So now you just went down to like 8 years versus if you didn't have that new one that was brand new, right? And you had the 4 that was 10 years old, then you'd be at, 10 years of history, right? Versus the 8 years. So this is what counts as getting new credit as well. If you get a new account, it takes that effect into the credit score as well. All right, and then 10% is called mixed credit. What do I mean by mixed credit? Well, you got to have at least one installment, right? This is where you have the same set that you're going to pay every month until it's paid off. Hence, usually your student loans, your mortgage, your auto loans, personal installment loans. Okay, and then you have your revolving debt, which is your credit card accounts. You can have online shopping accounts, your store department cards, your Macy's, your Fingerhuts, Bloomingdale's, whatever. Those are revolving accounts. Your Visas, MasterCard, all revolving accounts, right? So you want to have at least one of each. So if you do not have a credit card or any kind of revolving account on your credit, you need to get one. How did I tell you could get one? Even if your credit's not available, well, you can get a secure credit card. You can have somebody add you as a authorized user, right? All right, and then last 10% is your hard inquiries. This is when somebody checks your credit. All right, so if you go to a mortgage broker, you could go to an auto dealership, right? So now it doesn't always affect you the same. What do I mean by that? So there's 3 different categories. You can go around, shop around in these 3 different categories with only one counting against you. That would be auto, mortgage, and student loans. Okay, so if you go into an auto dealership, right? Do you guys see my screen? I only see not one on the screen. Okay, you don't see anything. Let's see here. New share. Let's see.
I think there's only one person having a problem. So
oh, okay.
That person. Let me see. No, Latoya and Tiffany. Does everyone else see? So I'd say 2 people. Latoya and Tiffany doesn't see.
Okay.
Everybody else sees it. So if everyone else is seeing it, then it might just be an issue with those 2 if everyone else is seeing
okay.
it. I'm seeing your screen.
All right, I'll keep proceeding then. So hard inquiry. So if you go to an auto dealership and get your credit checked, right? And they pull your credit, let's say, with 5 different companies. Well, only one is counting against you, not the other 4. The reason being is because, there was nothing that stated what your interest rate might be. Now, if you apply for a credit card, if you look on the back of the credit card application, this is going to say your interest rate can be from 5% to 19%. So you have a variance. But for student loans, mortgages, and auto, they don't tell you any kind of variance. That's why you have the 30-day window. So if you go to another different auto dealership and they pull your credit another 10 times within that 30 days, none counts against you. All right, and let's see, but credit cards are 1-for-1, guys. All right, so that's the breakdown. 35, 30, 15, 10, 10. Simple breakdown, but it's important to know which each.
John?
Yes.
Okay. Can you click share your screen again?
Okay.
You have 4 people that might not be seeing it.
Yeah, I think they need to click on the window where they see John Wilkinson.
Yes. click on John Wilkinson's window if you're having an issue, and then just click share your screen again, and maybe
Yeah,
help
because
will come on. No
mine's
problem.
definitely shared.
No, it's shared because I'm seeing it, and I think
Yeah.
most people are. But I have it's not only one or two people, but it's I think three or four.
Okay.
So I don't know why, but just click share and then click on John Wilkinson's screen if you're not seeing him, and go from there. And hopefully that should resolve. But I'm seeing it, and I think majority are.
Okay. So we'll have a recording of this hopefully, so we can send to you. All right. So proceeding on here, so we got the three major credit bureaus, which hopefully most people know by now, is Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. All right, and then there's other credit bureaus besides these three major ones, but I won't get into all the details of that. All right, so you got to check each one to make sure they're reporting to see what's on each one because they might not have the same thing on there. All right, so it's voluntary for a creditor to report to whomever they want to. Okay, all right, so one creditor might report to one or two, but not necessarily all three. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. They're able to do that. All right, so and then when you check with a creditor, see what FICO credit scoring model that they use. So I want to go over some fallacies real quick since we're getting pretty close in time. We still got a little bit left. Then I'll answer questions. All right, so closing my unused credit cards will improve my credit score. Anybody want to answer in the chat? So closing my unused credit cards is false. Okay, that won't improve your credit scores. Okay, because now you don't have that available limit anymore, right? And if you close it with a balance, or if you have another one with a balance, now that total is not going to be available. My FICO credit score should be the same with all three. Well, I just said that earlier, right? That you have to check because each one can report to whomever they want to. When I get married, my credit report will merge with my spouse's, which of course is false. Everybody's credit is their own credit. The only time it gets, you'll see one on each accounts if you either do an authorized user or sign jointly. You sign together. Okay, here, there's the answer already. Checking my own credit will create an inquiry on my credit bureau and will lower my score. That's false because that's called a soft inquiry. You check your credit yourself. It does not hurt you. So every time you go to Credit Karma or another credit monitoring service, it does not bother it. All right, and then my annual household income is a part of my calculation of my FICO credit score. Well, nope, that's not included as well. All right, so remember, educate. Be educated on this. This will help you out in life. There's a quick breakdown, 35, 30, 15, 10, 10. All right, we do offer credit services. We are a nonprofit. We don't charge anything till after we remove stuff. We are a part of the National Association Credit Service Organization, FICO certified, veteran-owned small business, and a 501c3. Okay, and hopefully this helped unlock some of the puzzles to the credit. Any questions? No questions so far. Sorry about that.
I think they posted a couple in. Do you want to answer those, or do you want to keep going?
That's it. I mean,
Oh,
that's
that's
it
it.
far as I have. I mean, you told me I try to leave like 10, 15 minutes for questions because I know people usually have a lot of questions. Hard inquiries, how many times to check your credit? Okay, so hard inquiries. I'm not sure about how many times to check your credit, but anytime somebody like you give Capital One permission to check your credit for a credit card, that's going to count against your credit. And if they check it with all three bureaus, it's going to be with all three bureaus. If they only check it with one bureau, then that inquiry is only going to be with that one bureau. And that's going to affect you for 1 year, but showing your credit for 2 years. The auto mortgage and student loans, you have a 30-day window to shop around with only the first one counting against you. All right, so hopefully I answered the question.
So one of the Miss Martinez posted, I have a great deal of department stores that want me to apply for their credit card. I refuse because I'm afraid it meant it might lower her score. And I think Miss Martinez, I'm not 100% sure. I think before she had asked the question to the lender that she didn't have any credit card, or I don't know if that was
Yeah,
But
so when you go to a store department card, they usually offer you a discount if you apply. And if you get the card, I usually don't recommend that because now you got an inquiry against you. And then if you do get approved, because you can only use that card with that one store, right? You can't use it anywhere else but that one store. If you shop there often, then hey, and you got good credit, then maybe why not, right? But I don't really usually like store department cards. They usually got a high interest rates, um, and then you can only shop right there. Okay?
question, John.
Yes.
Um, Normally though, with a stored credit card, is it easier to get a stored credit card than you to say if you were to apply the Capital One,
It
Visa, or Mastercard?
I wouldn't say so. No, no. It all depends on the creditor. Each creditor has their own guidelines. It all depends on how much how their finances. If their finances are great, then they loosen up the guidelines. If their finances are not so great, they tighten up the guidelines. So risk management.
Okay. It says also another question from Mr.
Sure.
Martinez is why do they have different reporting or different scores with three different agents?
Well,
Or
it's
why do they report different information? I'm
well
saying.
because it's all voluntary, right? So if I'm a creditor, right, and I'm a small mom and pop shop or whatever, let's say I own a auto dealership, a little small auto dealership. Well, I have to reach out if I want to report to the credit bureaus. I have to contact that credit bureau, have to get approved through them, and get their system called the Metro 2 or whatever that interfaces with their system. And then I have to go to the third one and do the same thing, or the fourth one and do the same thing, right? So if I only just do one, and I think that's good enough, then I can just report to them as long as it's accurate. That's completely legal. So it's just that's the way it has. Or if, like, say, if I'm gonna pull somebody's credit, I'm a mortgage broker. They usually pull out three, but maybe this person you're thinking, oh well, let me check one just to make sure that they're even decently qualified before I pull out three, because now it's going to cost me more money. Now you only have that inquiry with that one bureau, not all of the other three. Next question. Sorry.
What's the fastest way to build your credit score if you have student loans, car loans, hospital bills? Would you consider the debt a snowball method?
Snowball method. In that particular situation, there's really no snowball method. You're going to have to do several different things. If you got collections, medicals, you would have to see a company like mine to see about getting them removed. If you have, or any other kind of defaults, it all depends on what it is. The other kind of depends where you start off with. I mean, the fastest way to boost up a credit score, if you have a credit card and you have a balance on it, is to pay it off or down. The lower the better. The 30% mark is just a rule of thumb. The lower you have that balance, the better your score could be. If you don't have any credit card, authorized user. You have somebody, let's say you have a mom or somebody in the family that has a 10-year-old credit card that they hardly ever use and it's in good standing, low balance. They add you as an authorized user, reports on your credit where you get the benefit of that account and the lower FICO credit versions, right? If to rebuild it yourself is get like a secure credit card. Even though it's secured, it counts just like a regular credit card when it comes to the scoring system. So that would
Okay.
be my suggestions.
I think this question might be something you probably have to answer with them on one-on-one. They want
Sure.
to know what is your credit process?
Yeah, yeah. For the credit repair, yeah, get me with one on one and I'll shoot you a video on that.
Okay, so yeah, that's something they would probably have to answer with
Yeah, I
one-on-one.
mean,
But
yeah,
every situation is
somebody
different.
misspelled the solved there on our website, but if you go to the credit problem solved, LVED instead of, they misspelled it there, but the
Yeah.
org, then you'll see a video on how the whole service works.
And then what credit app would you suggest to check your credit?
For a free one, Credit Karma. It shows you the entire credit reports for Equifax and TransUnion. The reports are usually pretty accurate. The scores, again, are calculated differently, so it just gives you an idea about where you are when you look at the scores. But to look at what's on the reports, and then Experian, which does not participate with Credit Karma, you can go directly to Experian.com and scroll down, usually about three-quarters of the way of the page, and you'll find where you can do it for free, and they'll give you the report for free but not a score. But at least you can see what's on there and, you know, dispute anything if you need to or whatever the case may be.
Also, what is it called? Freeannualcreditreport.com. Is that the one that you can go and get a free report with no score as well?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know all the different ones. There's a bunch
Uh,
out there. I highly recommend if you really want to know what your real scores are, is go to MyFICO, MyFICO.com. That's the one that will show you, I mean, it's subscription based and stuff, but it will show you all the different FICO credit scores, your mortgage FICO credit score, your auto FICO credit score, your whatever credit score versions that you want to see, all the different versions and everything else.
so a question from Latoya is every time I go in and dispute things on my credit online, is it harming me or hurting her credit?
Well, when you dispute online, you're actually giving up some of your rights, right? So when you dispute online, so I would recommend that you would do a letter form or fax form versus online, but it's not it's not hurting you necessarily, but like again, you're giving up some of your rights, right, on that. And you know, if you're disputing something that's correct, because you're not supposed to say anything that's false. If you say, hey, this account's not mine, you know it's yours, then you're committing fraud, right? So, you know, but it's all, you should use a professional if you don't know how to do it yourself, because there's 183 different regulations or laws that protect you as a consumer when it comes to credit.
And another question from Elaine: if I don't use my cards, will they close? Will they close?
No, it depends on the time. What we recommend is people use their cards once every 4 to 6 months, right? So if you just use it, buy a soda, whatever, you know, and then pay it off as soon as possible. Once every 4 to 6 months, rinse and repeat. They should not close the card due to inactivity, and you'll be good as far as that.
If I'm trying to get pre-approved and send my info to 3 or 4 different lenders, does my credit get affected every time they pull it?
Well, it depends on what lenders you're talking about. Now, if you're talking about a mortgage lender, then no. If you do it within a 30-day window, they pull it within that 30-day window, right? Now, if you're talking about a credit card, then yeah, definitely. So personal loans usually. So it all depends on what you're applying for. Did I answer that?
Yes.
Okay.
The overall balance of 30%, I think you answered that.
Well, the 30% is just a rule of thumb, right? So the lower the better. If you can get at 20%, 10%, or even 0%, that's the best. I mean, if you really, 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 really want to be nitpicky, then the sweet spot, according to FICO, which I talked to personally, is 1 to 10%. But just pay it off. Then you don't have no finance charges. Okay.
Just paying off.
Okay, no problem. You also write a formal letter as well. Let's see if it's longer. Okay, the 7-year mark starts from the date the account went into default, guys. All right, not from when it was open, not when you were first late. When it goes into a default, most accounts go into a default after 180 days of non-payment. Now with mortgages, it's 120 days. That's a default, and with autos, it's 90 days. But the rest are usually 180 days before it goes default, and then that date when it's in default is when your 7-year mark starts. Okay, is it free to check your own credit? Yes, if you go to Credit Karma, I mean it's free. The way they make their money is advertise the credit cards to try to get you to get one of their credit cards they're recommending, because then they get paid on the back end for that. Okay, every time I'm disputing everything. Okay. Does paying off a hard inquiry shoot your credit score up? Well, you can't pay off a hard inquiry. Hard inquiry is when somebody checks your credit, right? So if you pay off a credit card that's maxed out, then that's could shoot your score up. All depends on where you at. You know, if you got one that's 500 and it's maxed out at 500, and you got one at 10,000 that doesn't have a balance, well, paying off that 500 one's not going to make a big difference because you have a $10,000 limit on another one with a no balance. Okay, so it all varies. All right, let's see. How can I negotiate something on your credit? Well, if it's with a third-party collection company, you can negotiate with the creditor to ask them to remove it as a part of the settlement agreement. Now, if it's with original creditor, pretty much forget it, right? But if it's with a third-party collection company, right, then you know, you can say, hey, we can settle this if you remove it off my credit. Make sure you're getting that in writing before you pay anything, though. You know, so because I see people that had that pay it and settle and then come back and they didn't remove it and said that we're not going to. All right, what's the best way to dispute something on my report? Look for mistakes. Simple as that, right? Look for mistakes. If you see they say 1 month it was 30 days late and the next month it was 90 days late, well, how'd it go from 30 days to 90 days in 1 month, right? Look for anything you can find that's factual to dispute.
Who they contact, John? So if there's a dispute and they see something that's incorrect
Like
on there,
whatever reports that you see that on, right? Let's say if you're looking at an Equifax report, well, then you would contact Equifax. If you see you're looking on a TransUnion report, then you would look on TransUnion. The settling account different for paying in full? No, it does not. It has the same impact on the score, right? So they'll put a comment on there, right, that you settled for less than in full, and then that creditor might have a policy they won't do business with you anymore because you did. But as far as the scoring system, it doesn't matter if you settle it or pay it in full when it comes to the credit scoring system. All right, I'm liking the questions. I think we got 2 more minutes. Yes.
Yeah, so if you settle it, or I mean, if you settle a balance and you didn't pay it in full, but that's what you guys agreed upon, and isn't that better than having it in collections and then after a while you can ask to have that removed from your credit and then apply for other credit cards and help build back your credit score? Is that how it works, or am I?
Well, you're a little bit off there. Let's see. So if you settle it, right, then it's not necessarily going to come off the report if it's with the original creditor, right? And you settle it, well, you settled it. The good thing about settling, it's going to, and it's already defaulted, it's defaulted, right? It's not going to go from default to a good standing just because you paid it or settled it or whatever. So default is a default, right? So the good thing about settling account, like say if it's a credit card account that was defaulted, well, now you still have that balance against your revolving debt, right? Now, if you settle it, now you don't have that balance against your revolving debt anymore, even if you have a credit card that was open. So if you have a credit card with $1,000 limit, $500 balance, you're at 50%, but you have this other credit card that's defaulted with a $500 balance, well, technically you're at a 500, you're 100% utilized, right? So if you settle that other one, you would go to 50% utilization, which would help the score.
That would end up helping your score.
Yeah, in that particular scenario, yes. You know, you really want to be careful about settling debts because if they haven't updated the account in more than 2 years and you go settle it, well, then they're going to update that account and then that's initially going to hurt the credit scores more than it would help, you know, than settling it to help you. So you could actually hurt yourself if you don't know what you're doing.
So so when you do the settlement, what is you do a settlement, you pay the less amount, and then they say, okay, it's a write-off. What does that, how does it affect you?
Well, if it's a write-off, they can, if it's anything over $400, let's say you owed $5,000, right?
Yes.
They settle for half, which is normally what you see, $2,500, right? So there's a $2,500 difference. Well, they can 1099 you miscellaneous for that $2,500 difference.
Okay.
Right? And then they write it off on their taxes as a loss.
Okay, so then you have to pay that difference.
Well,
What if you
you have
don't
to pay the
pay?
taxes on that 2,500.
So what if you don't pay and then they say, okay, it's been 6 or 7 years or whatever the time is, and then you say, okay, they have it on your account as a write-off. How does that affect your credit?
Well, a write-off and a collection is the same thing, right?
Oh, okay.
It's the same thing. A write-off means they just wrote it off as a bad debt on their taxes. That's you
Uh,
still owe the debt and everything else. They just wrote it off on their taxes. If you pay it, they have to put on their taxes as an income.
okay. So it affects your credit the same
The
way as a
same
collection
way.
would when it.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Same.
I get that question sometimes.
Okay. A
And I
default is
thought
a
it was two
default.
different things until today, so I actually learned.
Right, there you go. Okay, so yeah, default's a default, yes, a mortgage default, foreclosure, affects you from being able to buy a house for so long and all kind of other stuff and affects your credit, but the default, medical collections are not counting as heavy in the higher versions of FICO, but still in the home loan FICO range, they still count the same. I get that question a lot too. Any other questions? Let's see. What if you pay off an account settlement and they show a balance? That no balance will hurt my score. Well, if you settle an account, they're supposed to show no balance, right? And so, will it hurt your score or help? Well, again, that depends. Nothing's like a straightforward answer in the credit industry. So if it was let's say if it was a credit card that defaulted and they're still updating every month and everything else, and you settle it, and now they show a zero balance, that could potentially help your credit score, right? Especially if you have another account, revolving account open, because now you just lowered your overall total um, balance on your revolving debt. Even though that went to default, it's still a revolving account, right? So it still counts in that revolving, that 30% mark, right? So, but let's say if you pay off, let's say you got a medical collection, right? Or Comcast, or even a credit card, and it hasn't updated. They could just they quit updating it, right? And it's been more than 2 years since they updated the account, right? It says last reported or last updated, been more than 2 years. And now you go settle the account, right? Well, you just woke up a lion, right? Because now they got to update that account, right? So now that's going to hurt the credit score because it looks like in the algorithm and the calculation that it's a new collection. It's been updated, so that could hurt you. So it all depends. Next.
Any other questions for John?
Any other questions? Now's the time to ask. Well, you got my number there, so you could always shoot us an email. My email address is john@creditproblemsolved.org. Spelled correctly on the solve though. And that's the office number too. So you can reach out to us if you have any additional questions. We're glad to help. How long does it take to help your score? For it to help your score. I'm assuming that you're talking about credit repair. How long does it take to help your score? It all depends. If I give you some coaching, tell you to pay down the credit cards and you get pay down your credit cards and you get the new balance paid. It reports the new balance that you paid down. You're going to see a difference. If I get something removed from your credit that was a defaulted account, well, most likely that's going to help your credit score because you got to have the positive stuff to push up the score. It's not just about removing the negative, right? So it's a team effort. So, but usually 35, 40 days to answer the question in a nutshell. All right. Anything else? Scary people, credit, da 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 da. For just a skim over your questions real quick about being to protect yourself for credit, freeze your credit reports, right? Go to each credit bureau, put a freeze on them. It's free now. It used to cost you money, was a pain in the to do it and everything else, but now because of what happened to Equifax, you can now go to each credit bureau right online or call them, freeze your credit. If anybody checks your credit, they're not going to get anything, nothing, until you unfreeze it. right? And then you just call, get it unfrozen, and then if when you go to apply for credit, then you can freeze it back. So you can freeze it, unfreeze it, all you want. Some of the credit monitoring services have that feature as well to help you freeze and unfreeze. Putting a fraud alert is different than doing a freeze. Freeze, nobody can see anything. Fraud alert just alerts the person, the whoever's pulling your credit to check your ID. My credit's frozen until I open it. Yes, exactly. That's the best protection. All right, anything else? I think I'm out of time. Are we good?
I think so.
All right.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it, John.